This is an excellent pattern for slowing down the nervous system, and I'm about to count you through it. You ready to breathe? Let's begin. And inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, slow, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, again, and inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, slow, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, once more, and inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, slow, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you can continue that pattern on your own, or simply observe as your breathing slowly returns to a more natural pattern. And you notice how much more relaxed you feel, simply by taking those intentional breaths. Ensuring that your exhale is extended longer than the inhale. And I like to picture each time I exhale completely, fully. Little pieces of any remaining tension, leaving my body along with the breath. My friends, we should be sleeping. So once upon a time, in a valley nestled deep in the Appalachian foothills, winter had arrived like a soft hush, blanketing the world in endless white. Snow clung to every branch of the tall, ancient trees, coating the evergreens in layers of frost and tucking the sleeping meadows beneath a glistening quilt. The air was crisp and cold, but in its silence was a quiet promise. The season of gathering had come again. In the heart of the valley, where the snow lay deepest, there was a grove known as Snowhollow. It was not an easy place to find. Winding paths led through birch and spruce, the kind of woods where the only sound was the gentle crunch of hooves on snow and the occasional whisper of wind through the branches. Snowhollow had no grand buildings or stone halls. Its meeting place was a circle of trees, so ancient, their trunks twisted like braided roots, a place where the snow always seemed to sparkle a little brighter. At the center of Snowhollow, just beneath a great old oak whose branches curled like protective arms, lived a gentle doe named Sylvie. Sylvie had called this place home for many seasons. She was quiet, steady, and graceful, with a coat that shimmered like frost in the moonlight, and eyes that held the calm wisdom of many winters. Now Sylvie knew that Snowhollow was not just a place. It was the heart of something special. For 9 months now, it had been the meeting ground for creatures from every corner of the forest, a place where all were welcomed, whether they arrived as old friends or wandered in shyly for the very first time. It had begun, as all great things do, quite simply. You see, long ago, during a difficult winter, Sylvie had felt the ache of loneliness. The snow had fallen so thickly that year that trails had become hard to follow, and the creatures of the valley had grown quiet and distant, tucked away in their own burrows and nests. But one evening, when the snow was falling in soft, slow drifts, Sylvie had done something different. She had climbed the small hill at the center of Snowhollow and sung a song, a soft, wordless melody carried by the wind. It wasn't loud, but it was sincere, filled with a quiet hope that perhaps someone else would hear and come closer. And they had. First had come Ember, a young red fox with a thick red tail and a laugh that made even the winter nights feel warmer. Then Bramble, a cautious rabbit who kept his ears tucked low, but had the kindest heart Sylvie had ever known. Soon there was a curious otter named Fern, who had traveled all the way from the riverbanks, drawn by the sound of Sylvie's song echoing through the woods. And over time, more and more and more animals had come. They had sat together in the snow, not needing anything fancy or grand, just the simple company of one another, sharing stories, dreams, and quiet moments where even the hush of snowfall felt warmer with friends nearby. Now, as Sylvie stood beneath the great oak on the 9th month of their gatherings, the snow fell just as gently as it had that very first night. But tonight was special. Tonight was the night of the winter gathering, a celebration of how far they had come as a community, and a reminder that no matter how deep the snow or far the paths may wind, they would always find their way back to one another, perhaps using twisty, riddly roots. But that night the clearing had been prepared with care. Lanterns from Anhal, woven from frozen vines, hung from the branches, twinkling with pale golden light like the stars above. Snowflakes drifted lazily, catching the glow as if the sky itself had joined the celebration. At the center of it all was the fire pit, where a warm, gentle flame crackled, not for heat, but for comfort, its light dancing on the faces of those who had come together. And oh, how they came together. Ember was the first to arrive, his fur dusted with snow and his bright eyes glimmering with excitement. "Sylvie," he called, bounding into the clearing. "It's perfect. The lanterns, the snow. It's exactly how you described it." Sylvie nuzzled him fondly. "It's not perfect because of the lanterns, Ember. It's perfect because you are here." The fox's grin grew even wider. And soon, as the critters shared out the news, the clearing filled with even more friends. There was a Fern the otter, who arrived with icicles clinging to her whiskers and stories of frozen rivers from the far end of the valley. Kylie, the blue jay, on a branch, singing gentle songs from above. Bramble, the rabbit, who brought bundles of sweet clover he had saved just for the occasion. Even shy Mira the owl, who rarely left her pine tree in the deeper woods, had come, her feathers fluffed against the cold. And as they gathered, there was a sense, unspoken yet deeply felt, that this was not just a celebration of winter. It was a celebration of them, of the community they had built, day by day, story by story. Sylvie waited until the clearing was full, allowing the guests to welcome in additional friends, waiting for the laughter and gentle conversation to fill the space like the warmth of the fire itself. Then she stepped forward, the snow crunching softly beneath her hooves. "Friends," she began, her voice steady but warm, "tonight we celebrate. Not because the snow has fallen or the lanterns glow, but because of what we've become together. 9 months ago, this was just an empty clearing. We were strangers then, weren't we? But look around you now. See how many of us have come together. We've shared stories and laughter, yes, but we've also shared quiet days. The kind where just knowing someone was nearby was enough to make the cold seem a little less harsh. We've helped each other through storms. We've comforted one another on the hard days. And no matter how far the snow drifts or how long the winter feels, I believe we will always find our way back together. Because we are not just a gathering in the snow. We are a community. There was a soft silence as the words settled over the group, the snow continuing to fall in delicate flurries. Then, from somewhere in the circle, Ember began to clap his paws together. Softly at first, and then louder. Others followed, their voices rising in gentle cheers, the sound echoing through the forest. And it was then that Sylvie noticed something remarkable. The snowflakes themselves seemed to glow, catching the firelight in a way they hadn't before. The trees sparkled with frost. and above them the stars seemed brighter, as if the sky had leaned just a little closer to listen. This was the magic of Snowhollow. Not the snow, nor the lanterns, but the warmth that only a shared heart could bring. And as the celebration continued, stories exchanged, songs sung, quiet moments shared, Sylvie knew, deep in her heart, that no matter how the seasons changed, they would always find their way back to this feeling. And as the snow whispered softly around them, the warmth of the fire pit seemed to reach farther than its gentle glow could explain. The creatures of Snowhollow settled in for the longest night of winter, wrapped in the quiet comfort of each other's presence. And after a while, Ember, the fox, ever curious, looked up at Sylvie. His bushy tail swayed gently behind him as he asked, Sylvie, do you remember the very first time we all gathered here? How did you know we would become this? Sylvie's dark eyes softened, her breath visible in the cold air. I didn't know, she admitted gently. At first, I only knew that winter felt quieter than it should. I didn't want to face the snow alone anymore. And so, I called out, not knowing if anyone would hear. And then you came. You came. The group fell silent for a moment, letting Sylvie's words sink in. They all remembered. Some had arrived on that very first evening. Others had joined later. But everyone had felt that call in their own way. In fact, Mira the owl, perched low on a frost-dusted branch, added in her soft voice, I heard your song from so far away, Sylvie. It was like a thread of light in the dark. I followed it, even when I wasn't sure where it would lead. And now, here we are. Bramble, the cautious rabbit, who rarely spoke up, nodded. I remember being so scared the first time I stepped into this clearing, but then I saw the way everyone listened to each other, really listened. And I knew this was a safe place. And Sylvie's heart swelled as she listened. She could see it in their faces. The way they leaned closer together, how the sound of the wind seemed gentler, the snow softer. This was more than a gathering. It was the result of trust, of shared stories, of time spent together through easy and difficult days alike. It was home. But Sylvie had been thinking a great deal about something lately, and as the fire crackled softly, she knew it was time to speak her heart. She took a gentle breath. She took a gentle breath, steadying herself. "Friends," she said, "I want to share something with you tonight. Something that has been on my heart as the winter deepens." The circle hushed, the only sound the whisper of snow settling on branches high above. "We've built something beautiful here," Sylvie said, her voice as steady as the snowfall. "But seasons change. The snow will melt. Spring will come. And I've been wondering if someday this clearing will no longer be our meeting place." With that, a ripple of murmurs passed through the group. Bramble's ears twitched with worry. Even Ember, always so bold, seemed thoughtful. "It's not because this place isn't special," Sylvie continued gently, "but because I've come to realize we are what makes it special." It's us. Not the snow, not the trees, not even the fire. Us. Our stories. Our kindness. The way we gather for one another. She paused, looking around the circle at the friends who had come so far together. The friends who had recently returned. The new friends who had recently found them. And she told them, "If we ever need to move on from this place, I believe we will find each other again. Because what we've built can't be buried in the snow or lost in the wind. It's in the way we care for one another. It's in the way we choose to show up, even on quiet days when it would be easier to stay tucked away." The group grew quiet, thoughtful. Then Ember spoke, his voice soft. "But Sylvie, what if we can't find a place as perfect as Snowhollow again?" Sylvie smiled, her breath misting in the cold. "Perfection was never in this place, Ember. It was in how we made it feel. We carry that with us, wherever we go." Those words settled over the clearing like the snow itself, soft but steady, comforting. And then, to everyone's surprise, Old Moonsong the bear, who had been sitting quietly by the fire, shifted his great frame and spoke for the first time that night.
I have lived through many winters,
He began, his voice deep and calm.
more than I can count. And I have seen how ice melts, how rivers change their paths, how the tallest trees can fall and make room for new growth. And do you know what remains?
The circle leaned in close.
The kindness we give each other, the stories we share. Those things don't break like branches or wash away like snow. They stay, woven into the very heart of the forest.
Sylvie nodded, grateful for Moonsong's words. And it was then that a small figure emerged from the edge of the clearing. A young fawn, barely old enough to have lost her spots, stood timidly at the tree line. Snow dusted her back, and her wide eyes were filled with quiet wonder. Sylvie stepped forward gently. "Hello there," she said softly, so as not to startle the young one. "You're welcome here. Have you come to join us, little one?" The fawn nodded, but she didn't speak right away. Her hooves shifted in the snow, as if she wasn't sure she belonged. Then Bramble, of all creatures, was the one who spoke. He hopped forward, his small frame dwarfed by the ancient trees. "I know how it feels to be new here," he said softly. "But I promise, you're safe with us." The fawn blinked, then nodded again and stepped fully into the clearing. Sylvie noticed how, without words, the circle shifted to make space for her. They loved making new friends. No one pushed or crowded, but a natural space opened, as if welcoming was simply part of how they existed now. And in that moment, Sylvie knew. This community was no longer something fragile. It wasn't just a gathering that could be scattered by the wind. It was woven into who they were now. Woven into every gentle word, every shared story, every time someone chose to listen instead of turning away. And the fire burned low as the night stretched on. Stories were told. Laughter echoed beneath the winter stars. The fawn, who introduced herself as Angel, spoke gently of how she had heard about the gathering from a bird passing overhead. A little blue bird named Kylie. And when the night grew late and the fire dwindled to glowing embers, well, no one said goodbye. They simply stayed, shifted, resting, quiet, knowing that the circle would gather again. Whether here beneath the snow or somewhere new, their light would guide them back together. Because the heart of Snowhollow was never the place. It was them. And it always would be.